Good morning, folks. It's great to see such a turnout here this morning. I think the subject of welfare reform, there's a lot of interest in, and I know that even in local areas and local communities, there's been gatherings of people to discuss welfare reform and what it means for them. So it's great to see such a crowd here. Indeed, we were so oversubscribed that we're live streaming the event here this morning, so people can get onto the internet and get live coverage of the debate. So that's to be very welcome. So, as I say, we've had a great number of people interested in this topic, and no doubt we will have more interest as the implementation of welfare reform carries through. As you will know, the bill went through the Westminster Parliament last week and will go through royal assent fairly shortly. After that, it will come before the Northern Ireland Assembly for an implementation in Northern Ireland. There are very many elements to the welfare reform bill, and there undoubtedly is a lot of confusion surrounding it. Hopefully, though, by the end of today, we'll have a greater insight on the reforms and a better understanding of how these will impact people and families in Northern Ireland. And we have a range of fantastic speakers here for you today to give you an oversight and some insight into what's happening in terms of the bill and implementation of it. While social security matters have been devolved in Northern Ireland, there's a long-standing principle of parity which dictates that an individual in Northern Ireland will receive the same benefits under the same conditions as individuals elsewhere in the United Kingdom. Policy proposals for Northern Ireland's welfare bill will therefore largely mirror those contained in the UK Westminster Bill. However, and I think Les was making this point on the radio this morning, there are some unique factors present in Northern Ireland which I think we do need to take into account and which we have to be very aware of in terms of the implementation of the bill here. Some of those are obviously higher levels of disability, some of the difficulties people have faced in terms of the legacy of our conflict. We also have a range of other problems and issues. I mean, we've got some that has fuel costs in the UK. Our food prices are going through the roof. We've seen people coming along to our advice centres, for example, with things as simple as not being able to buy enough food to feed themselves and having to go to charities. It's an increasing thing to get food parcels. There are a range of factors in Northern Ireland which we do need to take into account, and we will need to ensure that we have some flexibility, I think, when the bill goes through the Assembly. This conference obviously is the start of a debate, and it is only the start of a debate, I think, and we have an important role to play, I think, as the voluntary and community sector to make sure that the worst effects of welfare reform, if you like, are mitigated as far as we possibly can. So, as I said, many people are somewhat panicky, and we're getting people through the doors of advice agencies and other voluntary organisations wondering, well, how does this affect me? And as yet, we don't really know the full picture of that. In saying that, the role of the voluntary and community sectors will become increasingly important, I think, in both informing people about welfare reform and supporting them through the welfare process, and supporting them, I think, in all kinds of different ways in terms of helping people back into work, in terms of making sure that they're getting their proper benefit entitlements, and as I say, mitigating hopefully some of the more drastic effects of welfare. Indeed, I would say the role of the sector is vital. So on the one hand, we have to feed our concerns through to our politicians in the Assembly, I think, particularly where we can see that there might be some unintended negative consequences for people. And I think we have a duty as a sector to bring those to the attention of policymakers as the bill moves through the Assembly. Of course, some elements of what the welfare reforms are trying to achieve are to be welcomed. For example, no one would dispute that we have a confused and labyrinth social welfare system, which is really in dire need of simplification. And I'd say, for example, Advice NI, and I know Citizens Advice probably with similar figures, dealt with around 260,000 inquiries from the public last year, and around 60% of these related to social security. So there are problems with the current system. There are problems, and most of those relate to complexity and administration. And we have a multitude of benefits. So, the universal credit is a good idea if we can make it work, and we can make it work properly for people.